Hello, I'm Francisca Escarate. Today we are going to talk about linguistics. It is the scientific study of speech and language, and it has 6 different subsystems to which, along with Matu and Ulises, we will give some really brief definitions.
Hello, my name is Matu Ramírez, and first of all, I'm going to talk about the first system of linguistics, who is morphology. Morphology is the studies of the structure of words and how they are formed by morphemes, who is the smallest unit with meaning and bearing. And the morphology talks about the form and meaning, and morphology combines the sounds into meaningful units, building the bridge from phonology to syntax. The second one is syntax, that ensure that linguistic elements are arranged in a structured and meaningful way. Or you can say like examine the structure of a sentence and the rules for combining words into grammatically correct phrases. Its forms and meaning is syntax organize words or forms into meaningful structure, determining how ideas are communicated.
Pragmatics is the branch of linguistics that studies how context influences the meaning of language in our everyday life. This means that interpretations goes beyond the literal words. For example, how the tone of voice we use can change meaning completely, such as when we use sarcasm, and how the message we are trying to give can be completely different than when we use a more sad or happier tone. Pragmatics also looks at how we understand what's implied but not directly said. This is directly involved with deictic expressions, such as replacing names with pronouns or using adverbs instead of the place or date. These words will only make sense if we know the context in which they are being spoken. Another core aspect of pragmatics is the function of a language, whether we are demanding something or making a request. And it also examines how social norms and cultural expectations will shape the way we communicate, as in how we adapt the way we say things depending on the receptor of the message.
Hello, Ulises Díaz here speaking. Semantics is the study of how the form of a sentence shapes its meaning and how we understand them mentally. This is what a sentence means rather than what it's literally saying. Semantics are highly important in how we understand language and reality. Through semantic fields, for example, we can group words that are related into our minds, such as health, work, emotions, and other more. Semantics also helps us to identify the role of a word into a sentence, which is called semantic role. This point is pretty important since it's necessary to form the meaning through the words. The agent, for example, is who performs an action, the patient is who receives the action, and the instrument is what is being used to perform that action. Like this, there are several more. Semantics is highly related to syntax. While syntax shapes the arrangement of a sentence, semantics allows you to decode and understand its meaning.
Now I'm going to talk about phonology. This system studies speech sounds and how their patterns change using context. Well, this branch exists because the sounds form different patterns in a language and between different languages. So basically what phonology does is study these patterns and sounds and tries to analyze them.
Phonetics is the study of how we produce physical sounds. It defines the main instrument that we as humans uses to speak, the vocal tract and the mouth. This allowed us to create the IPA chart, which describes almost every physical sound that we can produce. Phonetics is very related to phonology. Both study sounds, but phonology focuses on the abstract meaning of sounds, while phonetics studies how these are produced. One of the main characteristics of our vocal tract is the ability to make it vibrate, allowing us to make a whole variety of new sounds, and allows us to differentiate between, for example, the consonants sh and z, and also v and f.
Now, you may ask how all subsystems work together. We are going to use the sentence, "Can you help me?" to explain how these subsystems work together. For example, in morphology says the word me is a free morpheme and it is an object of the sentence. And syntax, the words are structured as a question and follow this structure as auxiliary verb, subject, and main verb. In semantics, we can see how the sentence means a request for assistance because it's saying like, "Can you help me?" Pragmatics say like, depending on the context, it could be a polite request or a desperate plea. Phonology say like, say these sounds are organized into phonemes and follow English sound rules, according to IPA. And phonetics said like, the speaker produced the sounds, "Can you help me?" Now I'm going to explain how syntax work in practice with the phrase, "His attitude made him very unpopular with colleagues." But at first I'm going to explain that syntax answer one simple question: how do we build sentences? According to Chomsky, generative grammar explained that humans have an innate mental structure, a kind of universal grammar that guide us in constructing well-formed sentences. I'm going to show you the first, what is hierarchical structure, that explain that syntax organize the sentence into layers. As you can see in the under is only words, only morphemes or lexemes, and but at the surface we can see a complete hierarchy tree. The second part on Chomsky generative grammar is the word order, that in English syntax demand a logical order. For example, in this sentence we can see the order subject, verb, object pattern on a SVO pattern. And the last one and the most important is grammatical rule, that explain the syntax identify roles within the sentence. As you can see, we have a lot of words, but if you see his, for example, is a determiner. Attitude is our noun head of the phrase and it's a noun. Made is a verb, very is an adverb, unpopular is an adjective, with is a prepositional, and colleague is a noun too. These rules you can see like obvious, but as Edward Finnegan said in Language is Structure and Use, they are anything but simple. Syntax operate with remarkable precision even in the most complex sentences.
There are many key concepts that we should understand about syntax to fully understand how a sentence can be made. There is a particular order of words that we should follow for our sentence to make sense finally. Into the sentence structure, we can see how the words, phrases, and also clauses are arranged into a sentence. There are 4 syntactic patterns that we should follow. Let's see first that a clause has a very simple structure of subject plus verb. An example could be as simple as I am. So our first pattern is simple, which is only a single independent clause. Our example will be we are students. The second pattern is complex, which has one dependent clause and one independent clause. For example, we're students with a hunger for knowledge has one independent clause, which is we are students, and one dependent clause, which will be with a hunger for knowledge. Our third pattern is compound, which only has two independent clauses. For example, we are students and we love to study. That has two independent clauses because they have a subject and a verb. Our fourth pattern is complex compound, which has two independent clauses plus any amount of dependent clauses. A big example can be we are the students with a hunger for knowledge and we love to study. In this case, our two independent clauses are we are students and we love to study because both have a subject plus verb, and with a hunger for knowledge will be our dependent clause. Now, as you may have noticed, dependent clauses need to be linked to independent clauses in order to make sense or to transmit any particular thought or idea. Now, this doesn't mean that dependent clauses couldn't exist on its own. It just means that in order to make sense and to be complete, they need to be linked to an independent clause. The arrangement of words is fundamental to understand what a sentence wants to tell us. Here we can find active and passive voice. Active voice refers to what the subject makes, the action made by the subject. For example, my dog bit me would be an active voice. But if I want to refer to the object that receives the action, in this case, me, I can use passive voice, and it will be I was bitten by my dog. In simple terms, they are the same, but the arrangement of words made it change completely.
The syntactic aspect is fundamental in a language because it allows to communicate effectively using rules and structure to give meaning to sentences. For instance, the order of the units or words in a sentence will inflict directly to the message I'm trying to produce. For example, when I'm saying I speak with Maria, it's different than saying Maria speaks with me. This is because I'm changing the subjects in both sentences, so I'm implying that the action is being done by different people. In the first, I am the person doing it, while in the second, Maria will be the person that is speaking. So basically, this changes the meaning of the message I'm trying to communicate. When one knows how to organize the structure of the units, it will be easier to give the message I want to give and for the other person to understand it. So syntax not only allows fluency when one speaks, but also clarity on the message I'm trying to give. Well, to conclude about the syntax system, to us as teacher, it's very important that we know how the system works, so we can teach the language in a grammatically correct way to our students. But as Namik, an author, says, learners shouldn't be overwhelmed with this theory because they can learn how to write grammatically correct with other methods.
I'm agree with that. I'm totally agree with what you say, because the understanding of the system it's so important. But for me, it's more important, as Chomsky say, and propose the theory of genitive grammar. We need to learn, yes, but we need to know how to teach it too. And I think, in my personal way, I think Chomsky have a perfect view of grammatic and syntax with his text, with his theory of genitive grammar, because as my classmates said in our key concept, we have a lot of things to explain. We have a lot of things to think, but I think we need to know how to work how it works in practice too. I think it's all important.
Understanding and learning how linguistic works is a very good way of improving these systems and try to make our language evolve, because syntax is not only important for one language, it is important for all language, for all comprehension about how humans talk and speak. So it is very important that we try to learn and teach correctly and properly how this system works.